Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
Hi again, curling fans, and good evening to you, Colleen. I don't know about you, but Thursday comes quick, but I also love spending our Thursday nights together and with all the great fans of the Roaring Game.
No kidding. It is awesome. And by the way, if I get a little pixelated or wonky with my connection here, it's because not only were we weakened considerably during the Fiona storm, we're in the middle of another huge rainstorm. So if I drop out on you, Dev, just keep talking like I'm there.
If you drop out on me, it wouldn't be the first time.
No, that's true too. That is true. We have a lot to talk about, though, we think, on this show as we sort of do the lay of the land, state of the union, what's going on in curling. So we're excited about this show. Super excited about Silvana Tirinzoni, too.
Wow.
She's here in Canada curling right now. She's advanced to the playoffs at the Boost National. So they're this team has changed a little bit. The back end's still there. So anyway.
Well, and you know, we talked about all the changes, in the Canadian landscape, but there were also some big international changes. And of course, Silvana's team undergoing some changes, despite the fact that they have won 3 consecutive Women Worlds Championships and are undefeated at the first Grand Slam of the season with all these changes.
Yeah. And the other huge change on the women's game was the announcement of Eve Muirhead retiring. And I mean, after that incredible wow of a season where she just won mixed doubles and the Europeans and the Olympics, talk about a way to go out on an incredible I've done it all.
I've done it all.
Yeah. She had a great career.
Sometimes you got to know when to sail into the sunset.
Not me,
right?
Not me. No, I like to just keep sailing into the wind. That's what
Listen, so nice to see the curling fans signing in from wherever you are tuning in tonight. Let us know. Roll call. It's been a while since I put that out. I know.
The words in forever.
I know. But look, we've got people all across the country. I do have my special jacket on tonight.
Why is it special? Raptors won with it? Is that the one the Raptors won with?
I wore this call on the night, and many fans, of course, Mark included, knows that I wore this in the locker room. I bought this actually in San Francisco during the Raptors run, and they won the championship. It was champagne covered, smelled like cigars. I have since got it dry cleaned. But I felt like I'm going to spruce it up tonight because actually we should let people know this is our last show for a couple of weeks. I'm leaving for Paris on Saturday.
For you. I feel so badly. I might, you know what? I might take a trip. I might take the Dartmouth ferry across and just do a little ride.
Hey, opulent, extravagant, outstanding. Well, you can see the lineup on the bottom of the screen here.
We got a lot to get to.
We have to get to it. We're going to go to the newly elected president of the World Curling Federation. Beau Welling, an American. He's only the second American ever, Colleen,
Ah,
to be the president of the World Curling Federation.
yeah,
And I
Don
understand
Barkham Jr., I think, or Don Barkham Sr., one of the
you
Barkhams.
did your homework. Of course, we did our homework.
Well, I've been around the game a long time. Surely I'm going to remember a few things. But the interesting thing is that it has sort of been a Scott. If when you look at the list of presidents that are, kind of running world curling, it's been a long list of Canada and Scotland. But anyhow, Beau is with us in the dark because he's having computer challenges. But you know what? It's like radio. This is like a podcast. Beau,
That's it.
welcome. Or maybe we don't even have his voice.
Thank you, guys. I'm so sorry that I'm having this difficulty. It's embarrassing, but
No,
it
it's
happens, I
not.
guess.
Oh, you wouldn't believe how many times it happens to me. Devin's already laughing at the fact this is not the first time this has happened. And listen, the important thing is not looking at your good looks, but about, first off, congratulations on becoming president. What does that mean for you from South Carolina, the curling capital of the world?
That's right. No, I mean, it's exciting. I have an incredible passion for the sport and the community of curling around the world. And I very much I've enjoyed my service, for USA Curling for many years. And then for the last 4 years, I was being a board member at the WCF. Kate Caithness has done an incredible job these last 12 years, but I'm very much a planner by nature, a very strategic based thinker. And so I'm very excited about the future. And I think we've got incredible potential to continue to evolve the game and grow the game and adapt. And so I'm just super excited. And when people ask me, what does it mean for me personally? I feel a lot of responsibility, but I think that the way I operate is I'm not really so much about me. I'm really about us and we. And so I'm very excited to work collaboratively with our member associations, with our athletes, with our external stakeholders, and really, many, many people. So I'm super excited about that.
Well, let's talk about that first change right away that's coming for the World Curling Association, and that is the no tick rule. Is that forever? Is this just one more year of it? And is it right across the board in all your world championships?
So it was a trial rule that our members gave the board the authority to trial last season, which we did. And at the World Curling Congress a few weeks ago in Lausanne, that rule was adopted. I don't think there's anything ever permanent, though. I mean, I think it's the rules for this upcoming season, and we'll see. It's certainly a part of where it came out of is a much bigger exercise, which we refer to as the maximizing the value working group, which has been led by Graham Prowse from Canada. And what Graham and our colleagues at MTV have been looking at is really lots of different issues as it relates to sport presentation and the product of curling for television, as well as athlete welfare, as well as spectator and fan engagement. And so the no tick rule was one of many things that have been trialed or will be continue to be trialed. And so anyway, it is the rule going forward, but we've got lots of other things that Graham and the group are looking at.
Beau, thank you for joining us and thank you for making time. Great to be talking to you. I'm fascinated about your journey to this moment for you. And of course, I read your Q&A on World Curling, seeing curling for the first time as a demonstration sport at the 1988 Olympics in Calgary. And Colleen and I know that this can be a sport where tradition is important, where people like curling people making decisions and weighing in and a part of the game. What is your comment or some of your thoughts on being somebody that hasn't traditionally been a part of the curling world, and now you're the president of the World Curling Federation? Because I think it was interesting you talking about that, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this show.
Sure. I think so. First off, as you guys know, I come from the world of golf, and golf would be another very traditional based game. But I feel like that we're around lots of situations in golf where we look to honor tradition, but how do we change and evolve for the future? And I think embracing diversity has been a big part of that. And golf hadn't been the greatest in its past in terms of that, but there's a lot of interesting things happening, I think, at least in golf. If you look at juniors in the United States, girls are participating at 2x what they were 20 years ago, and non-Caucasians are participating at 6x which they were 20 years ago. So anyway, to answer your question about curling, yes, I don't come from a traditional curling background, and I come from a place where there's not a lot of ice. But I've been involved in the sport basically, since 2006. I became the United States' first independent director. And I think that independence was an incredible value to USA Curling in terms of looking at things from a different perspective. And I think that, along the way, I helped start the Palmetto Curling Club in South Carolina. And so I think my work at the WCF, I've really benefited from my background in that I've been around more commercial and elite level curling, but I've also been very much around grassroots curling. And if we look at the diversity of members that exist in the WCF, we've got very large, well-developed nations. We also have smaller, more developing nations. And so I think I have a deep sort of empathy and understanding of issues facing different levels of our membership. And so tradition is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I think what you want to do is you want to value all the things that make the sport curling so special, that are the traditional factors. But at the same time, I think we want to look to the future, and how do we evolve and adapt to a world that is changing and adapting on its own quite rapidly.
Which I guess brings us to the idea of 8 end games. I know that was on the working committee thing, and that had a real mixed result. Feedback, at least from a Canadian perspective, not maybe for the rest of the world. What's the future of something like that?
I'm sorry, Colleen, you broke up there at the very beginning, the first part.
8 end games. That was a big talk last year.
Yeah.
When will some of those other things?
Yeah. So the 8 ends, 8v10 is a big part of this MTV working group of what it's looking at. And I think that there are issues, as you guys know, in Canada of going from 10 to 8 ends that would be, a big impact economically, 20% less coverage. And so that's a big factor. At the same time, we're really looking at predictability in terms of a television product, of being able to present a predictable, game of curling and in a certain time frame. And so, there are tools such as 8v10, but there are also tools such as thinking time per end that we've been looking at that relate to looking to control all this. And so Graham's group is tasked with sort of bringing to a conclusion. We've committed to our members that the board will take a position on all these various items that have been studied in the MTV group. We'll take a position sort of into the first quarter of next year. So we want to not make a rash decision. And I think when the tide started being a lot of talk about, do we need to move to 8 ends from some of our members? I think what we've done is say, wait a minute, let's pause and really analyze what does all of this mean, so that we're making not a rush decision, but a right decision. And it's just more complex than just 8v10. And so Graham and his group, and it's a great have done a good job, I think, of looking at all this. And so some of these trial rules that we're talking about, or even the now adopted no-tick rule, have all come out of this analysis of trying to figure out what is the best value that we can deliver to our stakeholders and to our athletes.
Yeah. And funny, you come from a sport of golf where there's no predictability of when that golf tournament is going to end. Same for tennis too. You never could go for 5 hours. But what about your other goals, especially in this first year in the position?
So my goals really are going to look to collaborate with our members and our stakeholders to really focus on our forward plan, our strategic plan. One of the things that has happened over the last 4 years is that WCF is in the process of evolving from a board that was very, very operational to one that we've been tasked by our members to be a strategic and policy-based board. And we've made a whole series of adjustments to our organization structurally to be able to do that. But the forward plan, it really has 4 sort of key pillars, which are competition, things around competition, which relate to, athlete well-being, as well as, more commercialization of our sports products. We've got development. We want to grow the sport, which means more curlers, more facilities, more fans to me. to us. Engagement, we'd love to get more and more eyes on curling, whether that be through broadcast or non-traditional media or just in general, as well as just sort of fundamental organizational sustainability things of looking to address risk. So anyway, to answer your question, I see a real extreme focus on collaborating with our members and leveraging expertise in our members to be able to really focus on strategy going forward. And to that end, we're in the process of organizing a big ideation session with a lot of stakeholders, in the early January to kind of really look at innovation and some things going forward.
More eyes on curling, always a good thing, Beau. Listen, there's a reckoning in the sporting world right now. We know that here in Canada, safe sport, creating healthy environments for athletes at the forefront. We're seeing it play out. Top stories in this country right now. Of course, USA curling falling under fire earlier because of Jeff Plush and his leadership and his past involvement with the NWSL. As the leader of an international sporting organization, Beau, I wonder, how is this weighing on your conscience to create a safe space? You talk about being a leader that's focused on we. So how do you make sure you're doing everything you can to ensure that you have a healthy environment for the people at World Curling and for all the athletes who are taking part in curling?
Sure. So, I think just in general, all organizations need, and not just sport organizations, but organizations in general need to have an environment where that is safe for all people in that environment, and not just safe, but one where respect and people can operate with dignity and power doesn't get used in an inappropriate way. And so we are firmly committed to that. WCF is pretty rigorous, robust sort of harassment and bullying policy, as well as ethics policies. These policies have been lauded by the IOC as being good ones. But I think when you have these situations emerge, and what happened, I don't know, really, I haven't read the report, but just anecdotally hearing, what these athletes went through at the hands of coaches in the soccer world is appalling. And so I think you never can rest on your laurels. And so again, going back to forward thinking and future, I think we need to look at everything that we have policy-wise and engage with folks to make sure that we're all on the same page, that this is the right way we going forward. We've set up we're in the process of populating a new DI, new Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission group, which I'm personally very excited about. But we see tasking them to have a review at some of our existing policies to make sure that they're appropriate going forward.
Good. I think that's it, Call.
Well, we could talk all night. There's so many other topics, but yet we have to keep that show moving along. Beau, thank you. I know you've had challenging connection.
I'd be happy to come back anytime, and I will commit to you that I will have a working camera if you have me back on your show.
We're holding you to that. We are going to hold you to that, Beau. Listen, congratulations again. And when you talk about the future and more eyes on curling, I think that's what all fans want. And so we're looking forward to following your journey in this sport. We're glad you're a part of the Roaring Game. Colleen and I think it is maybe the best sport on earth. And we're glad that you are looking forward to grow the game and keep it healthy for all involved. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Again, it's not just me, it's all of us. So if you got thoughts and ideas, I hope you'll track us down at the WCF and share your opinions. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
We will do that. Thank you, Beau.
Bye, Beau. I mean, we've got opinions on everything, so it would be a long list. I mean, but it is interesting. I mean, if there's one thing curling, in my opinion, has never been, it's stagnant, that we've always been moving. It went from 12 ends to 10. Now there's talk of 8. Of course, we see it in lots of bonspiels and slams and seniors and mixed and things like that. Mixed doubles is just a real interesting new area. The game is probably one of the fastest growing areas of the game, especially for the countries that don't have the curling population that Canada has.
Yeah.
And now that we went from just open curling to 3-rock to 4-rock to 5-rock, now tick, now back to no tick, I think if you look at other sports and look at the changes they've made, you'd go, whoa, those sports have stood still.
Right.
Whereas curling, I find, has evolved quite nicely. I hope they take the next step wherever they're going, just slowly and cautiously. But as he said, in some ways, when you cut from 10 ends to 8 ends, you reduce your visibility, you reduce the advertising opportunities, and so on and so forth.
Fascinating perspective from Beau, and we'll be paying close attention to that, Colleen.
But now we've got the queen of curling.
And now we have the queen of curling. So first of all, before we welcome Silvana Tirinzoni to the show, let's take a look at some of the winning, because there's been a lot of it. Take a look at this.
So much.
Get, yeah, let's move it. Get to it. This is how we do it. Yeah, let's move it. Get to it. This is how we do it. You wait, you wait, you wait, you wait, you wait, you wait.
Take it in. Take it in. For the World Championship, Switzerland. And for Alina Petz, that's number 2. And for the others, their first World Championship. Switzerland, they are dominant this decade. Can Silvana Tirinzoni keep the good times rolling? Covers that. Oh, how nice was that? To hold the shooter. Big up 2.
Get, yeah, let's move it. Get to it. This is how we do it. Yeah, let's move it. Get to it.
Nothing, and that will be it. What a remarkable performance again by Switzerland. Best all week, and they are the curling champions again for a second straight time. Final stone in a 6-6 tie. Is it there? 2, 3 straight for Tirinzoni. Make the final 7-6. Undefeated here in Prince George.
Wow, 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 wow. Were you able to see that, Silvana? Did it give you goosebumps too?
Actually, yes. It's still nice to see those pictures.
Amazing. What a run you guys have had. What's the secret in the Swiss water?
I don't know. It's hard work, I guess. Yeah, it's like we had great teams in the past. They were really working hard and inspiring the next generation. And also me, I was like always, behind Miriam Mott and Lucia Ebnerter and all those. And I had to work hard to beat that team. And once they got a little weaker, it was our turn, it seems like. And hopefully we can do the same for the next generation.
Well, I wondered about that, Silvana, and great to see you, and congratulations on your start at the Slam. You just keep the good times rolling. But I wondered about that because you had to be patient, and you were patient, and you were waiting, and now this has been your moment, and you really have made the most of it. How did you stay patient, and how frustrating was it at times, but you saw it through to finally become the champion you are?
Well, if you just take the World Championships, we had that then we haven't been that successful until the last 3 years, but there have been so many other things in between, we won a Grand Slam as the first team in Switzerland ever. So that kept me going. And then we won a lot of events on the World Curling Tour. So we had some successes, but never like internationally. But, I never lost the passion for the game. I still love the game, and you have to love the game, even if things are not going always the way you wish for. So that it was never a question to quit for me, actually.
And is that Olympic kind of gold dream still hot and heavy?
It's a little far away right now, but it's not gone yet. Yeah, so it's still a dream, but I cannot say that I'm for sure gonna be there. So it's a little at my age, you take season for season. But looks like I have another great team together. So who knows? Like I would never say no to that.
Tell us about that new team, because
front end,
you were probably watching all of these crazy changes taking place
Canada.
here in Canada, but you had a big change. What has that been like, and what do we need to know about this new team? Because it seems you haven't missed a beat.
Well, when Esther and Melanie decided to quit, it was, I had to ask myself too if I still have the energy to build a new team, to accept that new challenge. And so I had a good talk with Alina, and Alina said, like, without you, I'm not going to do it. So that was encouraging me too, to that she still want to see the future together with me. So, and lucky us, we found two very good, promising player who are also love the game just as much as we do, and have the same goals and the same commitment. And we are off to a great start. So I'm looking forward for everything that's coming.
Nice.
Wow. Well, 3 World Championships is amazing. I mean, a 4th would be like next level. Listen, this is our State of the Union show, where we're looking at the changes that are going to happen, especially this year at the World Curling. And you played last year at the World Championships with the no-tick rule. So now that is another season of it and likely to continue on, what do you think of that? Is that good for the game?
Well, I don't think it's bad. Personally, I don't love it that much. As a spectator, a little more than as a player. I think like I would probably love it more if it's just the last end and the extra end, because I think it's taking away some creativity. Like in the middle of the game, you can also create some offense to the side if you play the tick. And I don't like to see going everything through the middle, like in mixed doubles. It's can also get a little boring, I think. So I would probably like it better if it's just for the last end and for the extra end.
For no tick, or that
for no tick, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the move to 8 ends? Because that was debated with this working group, and I know you play 8 end games at many events, but to have it at a Worlds or even the Swiss Championship, is that something that's needed to grow the sport more, to speed it up, or the idea of using thinking time and things like that?
Well, there I don't really have a strong opinion on 8 or 10 ends. I think 10 ends is an advantage for the better team. But what I don't like is like on a World Championship, like you just don't have enough time between games. It's like you're playing for a medal, or like even for the title, and you only have like 1.5 hours. You cannot eat properly. You have to sit down on a cold in a hallway, where it's dark, and spend like the break like this. I just think like that's not how a World Championship should be played. And so like you have that basically like 3-4 times during a World Championships where you have like absolutely no time to eat. And so we have to change that. I think we have to find a solution for that. So 8 ends would help. You would have more time, or just have less teams or whatever. But I don't think we can continue like this.
Rest and recovery, so important, Silvana. One of the things we love about this show is we do get the international curlers, people who have been very successful, and we're always fascinated to get the perspective of the international curlers who have had success on what they think of the state of the game in Canada. What has Canada as a curling nation meant to you, and where do you think Canada is in the success of the game right now? Because there are a lot of people in this country wondering, where is curling in Canada headed? Big question, but
Huge
over to you.
No pressure.
I mean, that's probably how we got better in curling, right? When we started to travel to Canada, we were able to play in big bonspiels, and then the Grand Slams were very important in my career to get better, and that's all happening in Canada. So we we learned a lot from Canada, but then also I think like we did our own development. We tried to bring the game further. We tried to think like how we can get better and practice like crazy, you know. I think like people in Canada, they always think like we get founded by the association or by the state or anything. Nothing like that. It's true. Like we have to look for our own sponsors. I quit my job even though like I had no money just to play curling, and I moved back with a friend. Like I
Wow.
don't have my own apartment, and so there is a lot of sacrifice that we are doing, and I'm not so like all the curlers in Canada are doing that, you know. So it's maybe something that other curlers do more than the Canadian curlers right now. I'm not sure, but it's just like I think other nations are just working as hard as the curler in Canada right now, and that's why we caught up.
I mean, it was inevitable that all the countries would catch up.
Right.
But darn it, you've passed us big time, Silvana, as you try to win number 4. You know, you've had enough, you know. Listen, just a shout out to Eve Muirhead. What did her win at the Olympics and the Europeans? How great a legacy does she leave the sport?
Yeah, again, like she's also one of those curlers who was working like crazy. You know, she really was, you know, like her physics was crazy. Like as probably she was in shape that like the best of all the women's curlers, and it also she was a role model for many others. You know, we all of a sudden realized that maybe going to the gym is a good thing, and so what she achieved at her age, I mean, she became world champion. Like I don't know how old she was, but not much older than 25, I think. So
Right.
And then she had so many different teams and was always successful as escape making the best out of her players, I think. And it's too bad that her career ends at that young age, you know. And I actually hope maybe she's gonna give a comeback in a few years when she has the fire back. But yeah, I was hoping she would be on tour for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I must admit, I was surprised by the retirement news too. But anyhow, well, good luck this weekend. Listen, who is this Raphael Kaiser that's also perfect from Switzerland? This is a name we haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna make our life hard, I think, the next 4 years. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, it's always good to have somebody chasing your butt a little bit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you need that. You need that push in your own country. But
It looks like you still have the fire, Silvana, and it looks like you're having a lot of fun. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably what will keep everybody going if you're enjoying your time on the ice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, good of you to join us tonight, and good luck in the playoffs.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Nice.
Thank you, Silvana.
Can't wait to see if they can make a run for number 4.
If you look at the success over the last, 10, 15 years of Swiss teams at the Women's World Curling Championship, they've figured out how to deliver under pressure, haven't they, Colleen?
Well, you know what? Switzerland's been always a strong curling country, both on men's and women's. Maybe small. I've always enjoyed curling in Switzerland. Like the curling clubs are lovely and modern. First time I saw electronic scoreboards was in Switzerland, for example. They have a passion
Or in the mountains, or in the mountains outside.
Or in the mountains. We should go to one of those mountainous. We always talk about these trips we should take, Devin. We're never going to take one.
I know.
We should go-
Speaking of which, we were supposed to be in St. John's tonight for opening night of the Second Shot musical. I'm getting reports that it was a brilliant opening night. So congratulations to everybody there. State of the Union show continues. We're getting a lot of international perspective. Now it's time to look at things here at home. And we're going to talk to Nolan Thiessen, What a guy to talk to about all of this. Nolan, great to see you.
Nice
I
to see you as
understand.
well.
I think you're in Kelowna, getting ready for where the Scotties is going to be this year. Is that where you are tonight, or were you? Are you there?
I'm in Kamloops. I'm here now.
Kamloops.
Nice.
I'm in
Kamloops.
Kamloops.
That's right.
Nolan spends a
Yeah.
lot of time in cities that aren't his own.
That's
And great job in Fredericton, by the way.
Where we're hosting
And
an
nice to
event.
see you there.
Yeah, wherever we're hosting an event.
Yeah, nice. Let's talk about what's happening going forward. We just talked to Beau from the World Curling Federation and the no-tick rule. So how does Canada adjust to that when all of the championships that the Canadian teams are going to be at will be no ticking? Nolan, did we lose him?
No, I think I lost you there.
Let's talk about the no-tick rule that the World Curling Federation. How does Canada adapt for this year?
It might be his
headphones. I mean, honestly,
Go ahead.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, wireless, never a friend.
Sometimes it doesn't like those headphones. We're going to keep talking. Call.
Yeah, we'll take Nolan out of the picture for a second while we just talk about some of the points that Silvana Tirinzoni made. Like, there is this myth that a lot of the foreign players are just paid to curl all the time, and that it's their job to do that. She just painted a very different picture. And frankly, there's a lot of curlers in Canada who are definitely making curling their job.
Right.
Either they're funded and well sponsored. And I think that's a big difference in Canada, because the top teams, definitely the top 10 teams, get so much airtime, they can become like a NASCAR race driver, full of sponsorship. And so that helps fund what is a very expensive curling season.
I think we have Nolan back, and we're going to bring him back in. And I think you're muted, Nolan, and now you're not, and now you're good. So let's get right into it. Colleen asked you no tick rule. Over to you.
Well, honestly, we're talking to everyone, and we want to put the athletes in the best chance possible to win a medal at the Worlds. So we're obviously looking at it for our events as well, and then that would likely flow down to the member associations playdowns as well. So we're going through that, and we should have news on that here fairly soon.
You and I have had a lot of conversations at Bonspiels and across this country.
Absolutely.
How are you feeling about the state of curling in this country? We've had people on the show to start this third season about some of the changes they'd like to see, timing of events maybe deciding different things. Where is your head at, Nolan, as we try and get Canada back on top of the curling world?
Well, I mean, where the game's at and what's up with Canada is kind of a twofold question, right? From a Canada perspective, I know you're kind of discussing high performance and all that stuff and sort of our standing on the world stage. I mean, we still have a lot of depth in this country. I think there's a lot of things that we're always going to be looking at. Our high performance team lives high performance day in, day out, right? They're always looking for solutions and answers. I mean, Curling Canada is going through a high performance review right now, like something that we always do every year. But I mean, obviously at the end of a quadrennial, we're going to go through that and we're going through that process and it could lead to some changes. But we're consulting with the athletes, we're consulting with various stakeholders to say, like, how do we, what do we do to get better and really get down to the sort of the granular level? Like, is it, is it the time for preparation before a world championship? Is it competition schedules? Is it training? Is it, how do we incentivize teams to want to stand on the top of the podium, right? Who goes out there and day in, day out wants to be a world champion? That's the biggest thing.
How hard is the calendar, by the way, when you're doing the planning and looking at sort of where the Scotties and the Brier and even the Canadian mixed doubles that are all leading to world championships that are so close by? And is that, how movable and flexible are these dates that have long been carved in stone, like the Scotties
Yeah.
and the Friar? And is that part of a discussion that's happening, changing those dates?
Well, I mean, those dates, obviously that's part of the discussion. It's part of what leads up to it. In Canada, our Scotties and our Briar do a lot of things. It's more than just determining the champion. I mean, it's we'd be crazy to not admit that we run those events, because they're great and historical, and they create these like Canadian icons, but they also are a financial driver for Curling Canada. They are, right? And they help fund tons of programming that we wouldn't be able to do if we didn't run our major championships. We're not unlike a lot of NSOs that way. So, timing is definitely a conversation, but it's more than just, hey, do we need an extra week or two, or an extra month? There's a lot of factors that go into any decision that affects, the national championships in Canada.
And then that also affects the provincial championships. And then clubs would be in trouble, because if they had their provincials every early December or something, a lot of the competitive curlers would just stop curling from January to March. So I get the problem. What about draw to the button? We saw that at the Olympics, where it determined playoff people. And how much more emphasis do we have to start driving the importance of draw to the button, other than just hammer? Should we start looking at it for playoff possibilities at our national championship? And is that part of the discussion?
Well, I mean, if you got hammer in every single game, you don't have to worry about the playoff possibilities. You'd be number one in the draw, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a part of the game. It is no different than gameplay now, in that, it could affect whether or not you move on. So teams have to take that into account. Our teams last year, none of them were trying to not hit the forefoot and not hit the button right. They all have the intention every time out of going pin. But I think, how do we run those practices? How do you sweep? How do you warm up the ice? How do you create a buffer there where you're able to manage the rock down the ice and get more pins than not, and be higher up on that table for sure.
We talk a lot on this show, Nolan, about high performance and about Canada standing at the Olympics and World Championships. But where are we in terms of the health of this sport in curling clubs and grassroots? And, you've got to keep your eye on the prize for the high performance, but where are we in terms of where the clubs are at coming out of this pandemic and the health of the sport from coast to coast to coast?
I mean, again, that's another facet of Curling Canada that we look at all the time. We had our Changing the Face of Curling symposium earlier this summer that you were at. And it's similar to high performance in that, try to take stock of where we're at and look at our sport and, what have we been doing forever, and how do we find a way to bring people in, right? How are we a safe, fun, great way for anyone in Canada to spend their entertainment dollars or spend their time, their social activities. I think, all the clubs are looking at that. We're not falling apart at the club level, but we're always looking for new people. We're always looking to find ways to get new faces in the game. And we're doing that at the Briar and the Scotties this year, and that we're using London and Kamloops, and we're doing a bunch of youth initiatives in the schools and in the clubs to try curling, to try to get, find a way to make an impact in the cities that we're going to every year, to try to help that next generation come up.
Good stuff.
Tell me what you're doing with the under 25s, because I think that's one of the best things that's happening right now there's a lot of great things that are happening in the game, but that under 25 program, how important is it that you kind of do a determined focused with dollars in it to keep that age group, after they age out of the under 21s, to find a way before they transition to a full out grown up in be able to compete well at the Briar and the Scotties.
Yeah, you know what? That's Helen Radford really led that charge, because really when you look at the long-term athlete development, we lose a lot of athletes in that 22, 23. I mean, you're finishing up university, you're looking for a career. You want to get settled coming out of university, right? Not everybody's going to walk out of juniors and end up on a great team and all that stuff. So sometimes you want to find those age appropriate competitions against each other and invest in them. And that's what we did this year. And I think we're going to do it on a go forward, because it's definitely not a weakness, but it's that time that we lose people in our sport, and we're just trying to find a way to keep them engaged and involved.
Yeah, I call it a weakness. I think that it's been a traditional thing that people at university, they decide I can't do it all, or then they get married and then they're like, I can't do it all. Hopefully this works.
Hopefully this works. And Nolan, real quickly before we let you go, are you in Calgary for the new event, the new qualifier? I think Brad and Carrie are going to be there. Some thoughts on that, because that's a new thing, and that'll be at Winsport.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be there. We're setting everything up for the World Curling Federation. It's going to kind of have that Canadian look. We're trying to put on a big show for the first time that this event's ever been held, because I think it's got the ability to to add something to the calendar. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the America's Challenge, the way it used to be, wasn't the best. And I know that talking to some of the countries that play all the time in the Pacific Asia Championships, they would love to expand that. So this thing really makes sense to me. And I love the A and the B and how people can kind of move up and down. And we'll be down in Calgary, and I will be cheering for the Maple Leaf, though.
A place you know very well, Nolan.
Yeah. I spent a little bit of time in Winsport recently. I mean, a lot of us who were in the bubble might have tried to block that out a little bit.
Right.
But no, it was great that we put it on there, and we love everyone at Winsport, that what they really did for our sport, right? To be able to give us that platform in that year was huge.
Yeah, I know you put a lot into that. So.
Yeah. And quickly about Fredericton and PointsBet, how big, what were the takeaways from that for future events?
Well, I mean, I was pretty open with everyone. It was meant to be an entertainment property. I mean, it wasn't, we're never going to run a single elimination Briar, right? We're never going to say, okay, I mean, it might be fun to draw up the 1024 team draw and just say, let's go. But it was a fun event. There was obviously some learnings where, the first time out, where we'll go back and review everything and talk to the athletes. They were really good about buying into sort of what we were doing. I had a lot of athletes come up to me and say, I wouldn't have wanted to sweep the draw to the button, but that was good entertainment, right? So, I mean, it kind of accomplished what we needed to do. We'll be excited to see what we can do next year.
We love drama, and that was a lot of drama.
Yeah.
So, Nolan, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you, and we'll see you at a rink soon.
I absolutely will. Thanks,
Okay.
Evan.
Take care.
Thanks, Nolan. Bye.
I see our hot stove is fiery. They're ready to go. And so let's do it. The first hot stove of the season, and some fodder for the Flames, for Ted and for Greg back in the house. Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Great to be on. How are you?
Good to see you guys.
We're all
Good to see you guys too.
I don't know if you've been listening into the show or if anything stands out from what you heard. Maybe that's a starting point. Greg, anything that you've heard that has stood out so far tonight?
Yeah, I just reached down for my list. I've got a few things written down.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I took in Beau's segment off the top, and he, had some really interesting points, and also put out a call for suggestions. And I have one big one. And I really think a lot of these things are decorations on a cake that hasn't been properly baked yet. In that, it's still very difficult for curling fans to go to one website just one site and get all the information they need on teams, players, events, broadcasting, the full calendar. Right now, you've got to go to the World Curling Tour site. You could go to the WCF. You could go to the Sportsnet site for the slams, CBC, TSN. It's difficult for fans.
You're right.
And that's a problem.
You're right. So a better website. Well, let's finish the show on that.
But Ted's got us all covered. Ted, over to you.
I don't know. Greg's the idea man. I'm more complaining about the things. He's coming up with solutions. I don't know. That's all new to me.
What are you excited about, Ted? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, obviously, come on. It's the new teams. I mean, honestly, that's been the story of this year so far. And I mean, everybody broke up really, except for a handful on both the men's and women's sides. And that's just been really intriguing to see how those teams are fitting together, how they're meshing. And we've had some really interesting early events to get a sense of that. One of them's on right now at the Grand Slam. We also had that points bet invitational. And it's just, to me, that just adds to the entertainment level. And usually the first year out of a meal is kind of like, time to make all the changes. It's not so exciting. Everybody's kind of like gearing up. Maybe some people are taking time off, which is true. And then they're gearing up as we get closer to the Olympics. But this year, it just seems like it's just a real excitement based around all these new teams. And it's been fun to watch, and honestly, like to see when they had the points bet invitational and you see Jennifer Jones with that new team with the 4 young players winning it. And you see Reed Carruthers with his new team getting back together with Jason Gunlickson win on the men's side. I thought, wow, that really is fitting given all the change that's been happening.
Greg, what about the no-tick stuff happening at the World Curling Federation, all their events this year, and how quickly does Canada have to also come up with that kind of a change?
Yeah, I think that's one of many things, that's got to be on the agenda this season, improving draw to the button. There's all kinds of little things that need to be chipped away at. In these last few months, I've been thinking kind of big picture, and I certainly kudos to Curling Canada and PointsBet for trying something different. Just taking a look at that example last month at that event, I'd really like to see how, an event like the Brier or the Men's Worlds might be able to incorporate that gambling, that new vibe, new energy in the arena at events like that. I think it's a good way to start, but I'd like to see where things go from here, and it'll certainly help when other provinces, aside from Ontario, get on board on that front. But
you mean for gambling, really? You think that's going to be the water that changes?
I think it would. I mean, having been down at the ballpark recently for the Blue Jays a lot lately, it's amazing how many fans, how many spectators are totally into the in-game experience and the in-game betting and in-game gambling. Now, curling's not quite there yet. You can certainly bet on winners, over-unders, total points, et cetera, et cetera. But if you can get curling to the point where you can bet on how many points are scored in each end, how many is Brad Gushu going to have, 7 points in the first half of a game, like whatever it might be. If you can incorporate that, I think it would improve the in-arena experience because honestly, it can leave a lot to be desired depending on which event you're at. And frankly, I think it would help with attendance too.
There goes your kids' inheritance. Ted, tell me about seeing Jennifer Jones with the young kids and what she's done for that team. And I mean, you've covered her for so many years. Has this just lit a big fire under her?
Oh, yeah, I think it has. And just to touch on Greg's point quickly, I do think the in-game betting and all that kind of stuff is bringing in new fans already. I mean, I have people who email me, text me, what's going on with this team? They're interested in that. And, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world because we've all seen way too many betting website ads on every sporting event, and we probably don't need more. But I do understand that is a good way to grow your game, and it seems to be working. And as for Jennifer Jones, I've had a chance to talk to her. I talked to Mackenzie Zacharias. I talked to Glenn Howard actually just yesterday and he's taken on the role as coach of that team.
Brilliant.
And it's really kind of amazing when you think about it, Colleen. I don't know if you can think of a time ever when that's been done, where a real veteran curler went with people that young.
Yeah.
I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you've done it at times in your career, but like this is something really new because she's still very close to the top of her game, and she's gone with these young up and comers who I think we all can look at and say they might be, even if they didn't have Jen with them right now, they might be future champions in not too long of a time. But now they're learning from one of the best curlers of all time. And they've got Glenn Howard helping to coach them. And as Glenn said, they're just like Mackenzie Zacharias and the rest of her teammates. It's Carly Burgess, Lauren Lenentine, and Emily Zacharias. One of those players sits out every game. Mackenzie Zacharias is throwing second stones. They've made some sacrifices to make this happen. And what both Jen and Glenn have told me is that they're just great people who are absolutely up for what this means to have Jennifer Jones with them. There's no egos. They're just going to go out there and learn and try to do as well as they can. And hey, one big event, they already won it.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of a 5-man team with a rotation like this. This is a really wonderful example of why people should choose a great fifth, rotate them in. I know during the Olympics, we really thought we'd see Lisa Weigel rotate in a lot more because she played most of the season after Dawn's pregnancy. We saw Brad Gushu lose Mark Nichols and really have nobody on the bench to go to for a fourth. And it should almost, be a given that this is a good way going forward with a 5-man rotation, especially the demanding schedule. And on the women's side, a lot of mothers are, sometimes needing an extra player.
Guys, I want to ratchet up the hot stove a little bit because we just heard Nolan. We've heard from some of the Canadian curlers, and we've been asking them about their idea of when the trials are. And Ted, Greg, Cully, we've all had this conversation. I'm thinking back to Pyeongchang when this was called an anomaly, and then Beijing, I don't know what they're calling it. But there is no commitment to, at least in this conversation we just had, changing things up. And yet we've heard from some of the curlers that they wish they had more time to prepare. How crucial is this cycle, Ted?
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, there has to be some improvement. I personally wrote many times when we were leaving Beijing in talking to curlers that they felt there needed to be a curling summit where they really needed to talk. And I do think in talking to curlers this fall, they don't really feel like they have been included in the process that much yet. I think they'd like to be included in it a lot more. Now, there have been some discussions. There's consulting firms that are involved, and there have been calls and surveys and whatnot go out to some of these curlers. But I don't think they feel like they're getting enough of a voice in this. And I think I say that because maybe you don't always have to have a voice, but I feel like they have a lot of good ideas that they really would like to be heard. And you talk about, I haven't even really talked about that Olympic trials date change that, Colleen, you were the first one to bring it up as far as I remember back in 2018 in Pyeongchang. And I've been banging that drum ever since. And a lot of people agree that they think if it was earlier, the previous spring, they'd have a lot more time to prepare and that they'd be a better team once they get there. And I haven't really talked to any curlers who've been through the process who disagree with that. But again, we don't see that change. We don't see that we don't get that knowledge that there's been a meaningful discussion about it. And you just wonder if there's still some disconnect between Curling Canada and what these curlers envision for their future.
Greg has the answer to that.
Well, where are we at with the players union? I mean, is any sport in need of a proper association than curling? I mean, the appetite has been there for a long time. We've seen the communication disconnect. We've seen curlers be really frustrated at how things like trials dates and mixed doubles trials dates and all of that was communicated and how they had to deal with it. But I mean, look at how, you look at a Spiel, you look at a mixed doubles event now, and curlers are playing past midnight, 3 games a day, and then right back to the rink at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. the next morning. I mean, they need to get things sorted. And I've heard that they're getting closer, but it still hasn't happened. And I think that would have been a perfect thing to tackle in the off season. I'm surprised we're into October and we haven't heard anything, but I think it has to be priority near the top of the list for this season for the top curlers.
Is it too early to ask predictions for the year, by the way? Will Guju win again? Brendan Botcher's hot-looking team, and on the women's side, Carey trying to win 4 in a row, but people are chasing their feet. So let's talk about what might happen amongst the tops. Ted.
I think it's interesting, Colleen, because just to even riff a little bit off of what Greg was saying, it's interesting to me that some of these teams literally thought they need to take it on themselves. It's like, we need to take it on ourselves to do something different that'll allow us to be more competitive with the best teams in the world once we get out of Canada. And, you know, Mark Kennedy in particular talked about that when the Brendan Botcher team was formed with Brett Gallant and Ben Hebert and all of them being in Alberta and putting more of an emphasis on practice. Now that doesn't, I mean, I'm sure that's been encouraged by Curling Canada, but it doesn't come from Curling Canada the way that it does in, say, Sweden and in Scotland, Great Britain. And, you know, so that team was formed not with the idea of being the best in Alberta, not with the idea of being the best in the Canada, but with being the best in the world.
Bingo.
And so, you know, I look at it and say, I don't know for sure that they're going to be super successful right off the bat, but it sure looks like a team that is going to be super successful. And so, you know, my prediction certainly is that that team is going to be right there with Gushu at the top. You know, you can't discount a lot of other ones. You know, there's just so many good teams in this country, and we already saw it with people like Dunstone and Carruthers with good starts and that sort of thing. So I think that team, though, that Brendan Botcher team, is built for success, and watch out for them on this quadrennial. And on the women's side, it's pretty wide open. You know, like if, you know, Jennifer Jones's team, well, you're never counting them out, and she's got good players with her. And then, you know, you've still got Rachel Homan with Tracy Fleury. You've still got so many other teams that, you know, are there on the cusp, and it just makes it really interesting. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I think the men's teams are a little closer to being world champions than maybe the women are in Canada right now. But we'll see how, other than Anderson, of course, because she's so good for 3 years and has gotten better at her appearances internationally. Maybe that's building to the top.
Yeah. And Greg?
Yeah, I really think it's interesting that a lot of these high-profile teams have named coaches right out of the gate at the start of the quad, like a Paul Webster with Team Botcher, Glenn Howard with Team Jones. You know, it's really an interesting sign that, you know, they are going all in out of the gate as they approach this quad in the upcoming seasons. As for predictions, I mean, if I had to bet on the men's, I mean, you got to like Botcher. I think Matt Dunstone might be primed to take it to that next level this season. And the women, I agree with Ted, you know, pretty wide open. Jones always looking strong. The Homan Fleury team also looking, you know, like they could take it to the top. So, and of course, Carey Anderson. So it'd be a good conversation to have in a few months' time once these teams really get settled in. It can take, as you know, several months for that to happen.
It would be interesting to see if the model of Carey Anderson of keeping the team together, which has been so successful, continues to work for them, or if the shifting of the landscape, so to speak, makes that kind of a difference here, because Anderson's been the team to beat for a while now.
I'll never forget what Kevin Cooey told me. He said, I truly believe the only way in this country to stay on top is by making changes. And he has made some changes over the last quadrennials, and he's found himself near the top all the time. So he believes that's the key to success. Only in the curling crazed country of Canada on an idle Thursday at the beginning of October would journalists be talking about the future of curling. Ted, where can we read your stuff? You do great work. Where can we read your stuff and follow along this season?
Well, pretty much any website, newspaper that Post Media owns. Usually my On the Rocks column will appear there. And I wrote one today, just a feature on Glenn Howard being still going strong in the Boost National and other events at age 60. I mean, wow, it's pretty impressive. But, you know, great wide ranging talk with him about being, you know, still playing with his son and coaching the Jones team. And you can also see that entire interview in my On the Rocks video series. So hope people can check it out.
There's a video series.
Greg, you're going to the ballpark tomorrow. The Jays going to win?
Yeah, I mean, Alec Manoah throwing game one. It should be a really interesting series. And of course, the Rogers Center crowd will be rocking. First home playoff game since 2016. So, you know what the vibe's like down there, Dev? I saw you tweeting. You took in some of the stretch drive action.
I did. I did. Yeah, always love a crowd, love a big sporting event. And then of course, you'll be on the curling beat throughout the entire season, Greg.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And my colleague, certainly I always get a chance to read Teddy's fine work in the post media chain. Donna Spencer's doing our In the Rings curling weekly kind of column, notebooky type thing that moved today. And we kind of take turns. We kind of share the curling beat. And so her piece on university and college curling in Canada moved today. And it was an interesting read as well. There's always plenty to write about on the curling beat. That's for sure. It makes it one of the great sports to cover.
Nice.
They're awesome.
Good to see you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see you in Kamloops, right?
Yeah. Yes. We all plan to be there.
All right. Well, it seems like it's a ways off, but before you know it,
I know.
Happen like that.
Great to see you guys.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Haven't
guys.
seen them since the media bench in Beijing.
Well,
Nice to have them.
You were all there. State of the Union call. What are your takeaways?
Well, a lot of what they just recapped, that the vagueness of what might happen with the tick rule, like that's got to happen sooner rather than later. There shouldn't be much of a debate about it. If it's happening at the World Championships, it's got to follow in Canada. And I enjoyed the conversation with Beau. Wish we had seen his face, because these are interesting times where we talked last year about all the changes that the committee had recommended. Not all of them were embraced by curling fans.
Right.
Hopefully it sounded to me like he's a traditionalist that might not make sure the World Curling Federation doesn't kind of just take on changes for the sake of change.
Change. Are we going to sing?
Go.
Are
Yeah,
you
we
gonna
could.
dance?
So glad the curling musical went well.
So glad. I'm out of here. I'm leaving for Paris.
Oh, stop it.
I'll see you at the end of October, call,
Send
and
you
I'll
a
see all of
postcard.
you I'll send you a postcard. Wish you were here. Wish all of you could come with me to Paris. I'm scouting out the Olympic spots.
Nice.
Maybe I'll go over to Italy and scout
Go
out the
there
curling.
too.
Ring.
Go to Milan. Go to that curling club. Oh, I'm so jealous. Stop it.
We'll be back at the end of October. As always, curling fans, thanks for tuning in. Good
Thanks,
to see
producer
you, Paul.
Soap. State
Bye,
of
Soap.
the Union.
Thanks.